Hello and welcome to a new set of maintenance videos. This one is about the Honda 2.3 horsepower 4-stroke.
Today we're unboxing a Honda 2.3 short shaft.
So we bought our Honda Outboard about 2 years ago now. It was actually cheaper to import it from the UK than buy it locally in Greece. So the reasons we went for this particular outboard was it was very light. It's 13.5 kilograms, which makes it easy to get on and off the boat. It's also easy to maintain. There's no impeller to change and it's only got one cylinder. It's air cooled as well, which means there's no raw water cooling system to deal with. And it's very fuel efficient and has an integral fuel tank as well. The other reason we got it was we needed an auxiliary engine for our Johnson Evinrude 15 horsepower, which we used on our AB 2.8 and also previous to that our Carib 2.9. The other reason we went for this particular model is because we thought it would be easy for the kids to handle because it's small and easy to manoeuvre. However, because it doesn't have any reverse gear, you've got to turn the entire engine around to reverse the rib. And the kids' arms weren't quite long enough to do that.
This is our new outboard, isn't it?
Yes.
Because there's no gears, it's really difficult to manoeuvre at slow speeds because it tends to drop into neutral. So when you're manoeuvring in small areas, you kind of got to give it short, sharp bursts to give it any steerage at low speeds. In the last 2 years, it's been very reliable, getting us to and from the boat.
Going to the beach for a campfire.
It doesn't get on the plane, obviously, because we are a family of 5 and we've got an aluminium rib. So, on to the winterizing and servicing. So we've got some wintering jobs, and one of the first one is to winterize the outboards. So I'm going to do the 2.3 Honda 4-stroke first. The oils I changed last time, I changed the engine oil and the prop oil, the gearbox oil down here. This one's pretty clear, and I think it's probably a bit much to do it every 6 months. So I'm going to leave that this time. I might put the footage of it on this blog just so you can see how it's done. This is my little box of tricks for doing the outboards. Got a 4-stroke oil and 2-stroke oil in there, little funnels, some earmuffs, pump, bit of grease, fogging oil, the spark plugs here, and the tools that come with the Honda engine, which is very handy. So everything to keep you going through the season. First thing I want to do is run it. It's been a few weeks since I've actually ran the thing, so I want to make sure it's still working, and then we'll go into the full service. Obviously check its outer gear first. But even though it's an air-cooled engine, it's recommended that you put it in a tub of water anyway, because the exhaust gases can be quite hot when it comes out. Anyway, it's working. So it's running fine, but now it's just a matter of draining the fuel, checking the spark plug, maybe giving the carburetor a bit of a clean as well, because halfway through the season it seemed to clog up. That was my own fault for not winterizing it properly last year, and I think the biofuel in it kind of turned into a sort of an orangey gunge. I mean, this was the fuel that came out of the carburetor. That should be clear. And completely clogged the carburetor. So I'm going to give it a proper winterization this time and then store it for the next 6 months. On these engines, for some reason, the kill cord is actually integral to the cowling, so you can't actually take it off fully. You can take the fuel cap off, but you can't take this off. So the cap is just ended by this sort of like plastic T, and that just comes straight out. And the cowling comes off with this sort of rubber little catch at the back. So there's still quite a bit of fuel in there, so I need to drain that really. So we've got the fuel tank here, and then the carburetor is buried in this bit here. That's the air intake as well. And then around the back here we have the spark plug, and there's the fuel line there. So we're going to take this off first, then this, and then we can get to the carburetor. There's just a little catch catch on this side, you've got to be careful. If you pull it off, you're going to break it. So you can see that's where the air intake is. I'll take these 2 bolts off here, taking the cap off, and now we're going to take this off. You can see those, but there's 2 bolts that look very similar, but one is shorter than the other. It's very confusing when you put them back in thinking they're the same size, and it doesn't actually work. You can also see here the throttle cable. So if I twist that, you can see that's the revs, and there's the rev adjusting screw here, and you can set the tick over with that. And the tick over is even more important on these ones because they don't have gears. As you increase the revs, it kicks it into gear. So if you rev on tick over too high, then suddenly the engine starts. So the next thing to take off is this little lug here, and basically that clamps the throttle cable in place. And then the throttle cable is just held on by nothing really. It's just like a little kink in the cable there that you've got to take off and twist to get off. It's as easy as that. So that's that freed up now. This is the overflow, by the way, and then the next thing we've got to take off is this, so we can get to the fuel pipe. The great thing about buying these engines from new is you get a handy little toolkit in a little sort of blue pouch, but then the tools don't actually fit some of the things, like trying to get this 8mm spanner in this small gap. You can't do it, so I've got to revert to my Makita tools here to get them off. So there's about 10mm difference. So the longer one is on the right, I'm going to remember that. Okay. So you can just see the air filter in there. And that's possible to see. And that's where the carburetor goes there. You see the gasket struck down there. You be careful not to damage that. Not damaged. There's the second gasket in there. It's pretty secure in place. It doesn't have to come off. And if I try and force it off, it might break it. So I'm just going to leave it where it is. I'm just going to take the choke cable off here. So this basically controls the air intake here. So it decreases the air, which increases the fuel in the carburetor, which makes it a rich mixture, which kind of gives it a kick start when you're first starting. It's just a mechanical mechanism that opens and shuts this little flap here, but it's a bit of a fiddle to get off. And this is where this is the fuel pipe going at the carburetor. But the thing is, I've still got a bit of fuel left in that tank, so it's all going to run out. So I need to be careful not to have it all gush out when I'm taking it off. So I'm just removing that circlip. The throttle cable off. So there's the carburetor. So there are some signs of rusting around this bolt here and here, which is obviously where I missed the greasing last season, so I have to remember to do that this season. There's the gasket stuck in place there. There's a choke cable, throttle cable, fuel pipe. While we're at it, we'll have a look at this spark plug as well. Take that out. Should be okay. I only replaced it about 6 months ago. It is looking a bit black. I mean, obviously I tried it before and it worked, so but maybe just give it a little wipe. There's a bit of rusting around there as well in the drain valve. So I brought it into the cockpit, so if you can hear some sounds in the background, it's because the wind's picked up a bit. Got the carburetor off now. Still a bit of fuel in there, so I'm going to take it apart and see what we've got in there, make sure it's clean, and then put it back together. The drains are a bit rusted up there, so I'm just going to free them up with a bit of WD-40. I think even if you don't think the carburetor is clogged up or anything, it's worth taking things apart every now and again just to stop them seizing up. That's the bowl off the carburetor. Definitely worth a clean out. So now I'm just going to unscrew everything, make sure everything's nice and loose. That's basically the bolt that holds the bowl on. Yeah, which attaches in there. And this is just the drain plug. The remnants of a tiny O-ring conceal that, so we'll have to find something to replace that. So this is the fiddly bit. There's a pin there just holding on that float switch, and that basically keeps the reservoir full, so you've got a constant supply to the carburetor. Pull that out. You can see there's a little pin in there that's very delicate, and the thing I want to get out is the little jet in there. So there's the little hole that the fuel goes up. I think I'll bring the camera around the other side so you can see it a lot easier. Okay, so that's the main reason the carburetors get blocked, is this tiny hole here. It's so small and so delicate, but that looks absolutely clear, which I kind of suspected it was anyway. But you can see it just takes a tiniest bit of grit to block that up. I'm just checking the O-ring here is okay, and it looks fairly intact. A little bit of dirt from last time actually. See that orange residue, that was there last time I took the carburetor apart, and it was far worse than that. And I think that was the residue from the ethanol in the biofuel. And if you don't clean it out or keep running it, it just clogs up like jelly. Next thing is to give it a bit of a clean. I tried the local chandleries and there was no carb cleaner, so I borrowed this off a fellow boatie who swears by it, but unfortunately it is a carcinogen, so I'm not going to recommend it, but it does a good job of cleaning. So I'm just going to give these a bit of a dip. And you'll actually see some stuff coming out as well. If you can get hold of some carb cleaner, it's much better than messing about with dangerous chemicals. I'm just going to borrow this bit of E-string from the guitar. It's just to give those nozzles a bit of a clean, like that. I mean, the other thing you can use is bristles off a brush. It's clean. Just going to take the top of the carburetor off as well, just have a quick look in there, make sure there's nothing gunked up. Yep, it looks all pretty clean in there. There's not a lot to these motors to go wrong, so give it a bit of a clean down every season. It should last years. So next I'm just going to give it a spray down with some fogging spray inside. This is for internal components for engines, and it gives it a thin coat of protection. So when it sits there in the winter, it doesn't just sit there getting moist and rusty. If you're using any solvents, try and keep them off the rubber O-rings and gaskets and things like that. I'm going to give that a bit of a coat. It's starting to rust up a bit. Bit of a spray with fogging spray. Just want a thin coat. Just make sure your pin goes in the little hole. So that's your float switch. Put a bit of fogging spray in that as well. Okay, and this is what I didn't do at the end of last season, and that's why I had problems. Probably overkill doing this, but it'll be safe than sorry. So that's just to give it a thin coat of protection all over. Try and clean it off the rubber bits if you can. Now they can go back on the motor and be stored for the next 6 months. Okay, so I'm just putting the air filter back onto the carburetor there, and it is a bit fiddly because you've got to get it into this, where this gasket is here. I've already got the fuel pipe on, the throttle cable and the choke cable. I've also remembered to put the bolts in place here and the gasket in here, and the longer bolt goes on the side here, and then I've got to get this little pipe on here as well, which is really tricky. So just remember to put your throttle cable on the top and not underneath.
Did you get that stuff that you need to clean it with?
No, I borrowed something off Stuart. I think the 2 channels and I couldn't get it. And then there's the cable clamp. This might need adjusting later as well. Okay, this bit. So make sure there's no play in this when it goes low revs. So you might have to adjust this throttle cable here, and that clamps it in place just at the right place there. Carburetor overflow is here. The only other thing I've got to adjust is the drain plug, which is completely around the wrong way. I forgot to mark it when I put it back, and so it's draining actually into the engine cowl and into here rather than out here, so I'm going to have to turn that, adjust it. Just going to put a little bit of fogging spray in where the spark plug goes, just to make sure that it's nicely coated in there. Just going to cut up this old yogurt pot lid to make a bit of a funnel for the oil to drain out. And engine oil, it's a 1/4 of a litre. So I'm just going to use a bit of fresh oil to flush it through, and then start filling it up from the bottom. But unfortunately I've got the wrong adapter at the bottom, so I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this without spilling loads. Gearbox oil, 0.05 litres. So that's it winterized anyway. The other way to do it is run the engine till it's dry, so you're absolutely sure that the carburetor is clear. And also, as you're doing that, spray some fogging spray into the air intake. That'll take it into the cylinders and give it a nice coating on the inside, which will keep it clear as well until the next season.